आगे मत जाओ, आगे 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 मत जाओ। भाई 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 भाई
मैम इथे थैंक यू।
सॉरी।
Hopkins has got something what is called as the RISE, Resilience in Stressful Event, and there are many other programs, and I'm going to leave the slides with the organizers, and I'm going to have that. There's something what is called as for you matter, give you a quick snapshot.
Bachelor in Sociology from Delhi University, did his Masters in Social Anthropology. Listen to is Sonali Bendre. She's with us today. Sonali makes you still, if you look at her, you still feel like that movie Sarfarosh, and you start feeling that if only you had Jagjit Singh's voice, you will be singing that famous ghazal of Sarfarosh. So Sonali Bendre made her debut in...
already been generous, and he has given a very good introduction of Miss Sonali Bendre Behel. Without any further delay, I would like to please welcome her on the stage. A big round of applause, please.
So as I said, I wish I had the voice of Jagjit Singh to say, "Hosh walon ko khabar kya, bekhudi kya cheez hai." You will remember her in Sarfarosh with Amir Khan and Nasiruddin Shah. That's it. Sonali, you are an icon in the eyes of a lot of people. First, as a career woman who made theatre, films, television, somebody who has gone through this kind of a journey, to have suddenly been detected with a life-threatening situation, your career being at stake, and then emerging out of it and becoming a champion protagonist for it, obviously raises certain questions in the minds of a lot of us who are from the medical world. First of all, would be intrusive on my part to ask you, how were you diagnosed? Where were you diagnosed? How did you get to know? Because from you, these lessons will go to a large number of people.
First of all, good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Dr. Patankar, Dr. Patkar, and Dr. Agarwal, they've been strong pillars in this journey of mine, and somewhere have been part of the beginning of this phase of my life, I would say, because it is a different phase. And my husband and me joke, we say BC and AC, that's before cancer and after cancer. It's like a different lifetime. Like you said, that, you know, I don't think I'm a champion in the sense of kind of trying to, my voice is much softer than what was going on before. I'm not, if you're here, sorry about that. I can't really shout so much, but you were right about it, that we need to demand. And what happened was that I did not look at what was happening to me and did not ask too many questions as I should have. Couple of points to that. Probably it comes from the fact that as women, without knowing, in the subconscious, we are all taught Sahin Shakti bahut achhi baat hoti hai. So you're taught that, you know what, be tough, bear the pain. You have to bear a child, bear the pain. We're all being told that somewhere. So you kind of internalize that, and you're always thinking that, you know what, I can bear the pain and you can go on. And I kept telling myself that I'm putting in an 18-hour day, So obviously I'm fine, I'm not dying, but I was. And when I look back and I say, how did I do that? So then the question was that why did I put up with this pain? What was I waiting for me to collapse? To understand what my body was trying to tell me. So it comes down to that the body was sending me signals. I was not looking at it as I should have looked at it. Half of the time we say that, yeah, but I've told my doctor, so it should be okay. But we forget doctors are human beings too. And they're looking at, especially in our country, the kind of patients they're looking at, the kind of numbers they're looking at. It's really not possible for them, to blame everything on doctors and say, why did they not? I mean, how can they? It's my own body which was telling me and I did not listen to it, so why expect somebody else to? So I think we are already putting on a lot of burden where doctors are concerned. So that's where it started for me, not listening to the signals. Went in for a what would you call it, a TCRE procedure? Because these are the medical terms that I know of and which here, this room, people will understand. But yeah, and we were suddenly, we discovered that there was something in there which was causing this whole thing all this while. And we came out of there and then we discovered that it was not just there, it was all over. It was spreading really fast and it had spread to a lot of areas and basically it was the 4th stage. So I don't know how I had pulled it off till then, but that was the shocker.
So Sonali, from the perspective of the diagnosis, from the perspective of the guidance that you received, do you have any reservations about the quality of care that you received here?
Not at all, but I would say I did go to the US. I went to New York for my treatment. My husband was very clear about it. He said, I don't want to take any chances. And the reason I think I was literally fighting with him. I'm like, my child is young, the home is here, and we're just picking up. And it was literally in 2 days after the diagnosis that we had packed our bags and we had left. And I didn't know when I was coming back, what was happening, where I was going for. It was just the 2 of us. We had not really had time to discuss it with too many people and we had just taken off. He had got the appointments and we had just taken off. So I kept fighting with him saying that, how can you just stop everything? But when I reached there and I got to know the extent of this, somewhere I did honestly feel, thank God I'm here. I think that comes from the fact that there are a lot of things that now in hindsight I look at and it was probably an instinct, but where he came from and as he explains it to me, he said that, I know we would have got great care here and touch wood, we have the means to and the connections to and the relationships where we could tap on people, but the fact remains that we went to a place where this is what they dealt with. The only disease they dealt with was this. So his logic was that if for so many years they're only dealing with cancer and its various types of cancers, so much so that the place that I went to, the entire building was dedicated to just these type of cancers. That means there has to be something in which when you're obviously doing it constantly for so many hours, there's definitely going to be more data that's collected, there's going to be more intuition that is going to be there. He said, you were at a stage where I did not want to take a chance on this. And in his words, what he said was that I would rather say that, I overthought it and I overreacted rather than later on feel that I should have done it. He said, I did not want to take that chance. And that was the reason why we went there. So, no offense and nothing.
No, not at all. What I was leading to is that in your mind's eye and in your husband's eye, it was the outcome that was probably higher in that particular hospital, maybe because of super specialization or whatever. So to you and to your husband, and decision making was based not because you didn't receive the right care or would not have got the right care, but because you felt that the outcomes there, being super specialized in that particular area and having that expertise were higher. So to you,
I would say that if I was at an earlier,
important.
Yes, absolutely. I would say that if I was at an earlier stage, I would have definitely not gone, because I knew we could be dealing with it. But when you were at a stage where it was like, we don't know where this is going to go next, then you didn't want to take a chance on the outcome.
So if you were to give a message to the public, how important do you think is the determinant of quality and outcome, ultimately to what you decide to do with the treatment that you're going to receive? One part is, of course, cost, which you just yourself mentioned that you were in a position to be able to afford the cost. But my point is, other than the cost, is the assurance of getting a better outcome a determinant?
Absolutely it is, because you know, people put in their life savings to get that outcome. So, you know, anybody who can is going to try and do that. Education and health are two areas where you're really not looking at profits. You're going to put in spite of, even if you have less to eat, you're going to put in, and that education for your children and healthcare for your family is something that you are going to put in your money on. When you say saving for the rainy day, these are the rainy days that you're saving for.
Just sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Do you have a medical insurance?
But not the one now that you can use abroad.
But you do have.
But I do say that we need to have the insurance, and that is what takes us through. And what Arnav was saying is true. My father's a government servant, and CGHS plays a very important role in our family. So insurance is important, and I think in a talk that I had when I came back also, I said that medical insurance is important. You know, half the time we think this is not going to happen to me. It's for somebody else, and then when it happens is when you realize that no, it can happen to anybody, and you need to be prepared. So this is something that we do need to do. Sorry, I lost my train of thought on that, but...
No, I want you to keep on in this train of thought.
Okay.
So tell me, how is this that in a country, the driver of the car is insured compulsorily, but the driver is not?
Well, I think the employer should have the insurance for the driver also.
So suppose you are the driver or I am the driver. Our car by law is insured.
But
We cannot drive on a vehicle
So are
on
you
the road.
asking me that
But
by
the
law
government
should
says
there be
nothing. Our
insurance?
regulation says nothing that you and I should be covered by insurance.
So maybe this is the right thing, that what he's saying, maybe this is the voice that should be spoken about.
So please.
And yeah, and we should be discussing. But having said that, there are a lot of things here that as a layman, I still don't know, because it's a subject that is definitely, first of all, the medical terms frighten you. The moment you hear them, I start feeling what is happening, and I start palpitating just hearing the terms. And it is a disease that is scary, no doubt about it. But you know, it is not a disease that can be diagnosed very easily. So what I'm understanding, and which obviously here, it's a room full of doctors, and I can't believe I'm sitting here and saying what I'm saying, and I mean, I'm talking about it. But I don't know the medical terms of it, and I don't know how you will arrive at the thing. But because I went through it, my journey has been that eventually what I have understood, and to put it down in layman terms, is that early detection is what is the most important thing when this disease is concerned. Because medicine is at a stage where if you detect it early, there needn't be such invasive treatments that we have to go through. Because sometimes, right now, I think the disease is somewhat less scarier than the treatment that you go through. The treatment is actually more frightening and more painful. You feel that sometimes. So early detection, I think, is what is the most important thing. Had I detected it early, there were more chances. It would cost me less. I would go through less painful treatments. I would have more options in where the treatment was concerned also. So for me, I didn't know this disease was so prevalent because nobody talks about it. When it happened to me, I realized in my family how many people had had it and had not spoken about it. And I was like, I wish I knew. I wouldn't have thought that, oh, this is never going to happen to me. So when I put the post out on my social media, because I was doing some work, I did not want any kind of a gossip around it. And my son, you know, children are much more tech savvy. I didn't want him hearing and reading something wrong. So I wanted to put out my story myself. So when I put it out, the response that I got was what was shocking for me. Because there were people from all stratas of society writing in to me saying, this is what happened to my aunt, to my grandmother, to my son, to my mom, you know, everybody. And there was no like a niche in society. Every strata of society they were writing in from, and they were discussing it. And suddenly I said, oh, but if this has been so prevalent, why had I not heard of it? And I never knew that this could happen, that it is so rampant. I know we all say that today the pollution, the toxins and etc. Of course, they must be affecting it, and they are there. But cancer is something that's been there for the longest time. Probably it was not diagnosed as often. But when so many stories you hear when they talk about their grandmothers and their grandaunts getting it, surviving it or not surviving it, either ways. So obviously it's been around for a long time. Probably it's getting diagnosed better now. But what I realized was that this was something that they were all holding on to, and nobody shared it in their own families. Like there was a mother who told me that, you know, my son went through it. I did not share it with my own mother because, you know, we kept it hidden. We said it was asthma. was like, what? Why would you do that? And it's like, no, you know, how can you share this with people? I'm like, why would you not share it with people? What I realized by sharing was that first I heard that I was not alone, that this was not so unique, I was not so special that only I had got cancer. Everybody gets it and anybody could get it. Secondly, everybody kept saying that how could you get it? You're so healthy, your lifestyle is so good, how could you get it? And I kept asking myself that question, that why have I got it? And then I realized it's genes, you know, it's not something that, definitely if you have the genetic predisposition to it or whatever, your toxins and the environment and the way you lead your life will definitely affect, that will affect for any other illness also. Leading a healthy life is a basic, you know, basic thing for any sort of disease, not just for cancer. So other than that, I realized that I was not alone, that there were a lot of people out there who were not talking about it. So the next post was to thank people for sharing their stories, because it made me feel less alone. It made me feel like part of a community. And then the stories, what I started putting out was more of saying, thank you for sharing, and the fact that, you know what, why are we not talking about it? Because what I found when I shared it was that I got a lot of love. I got so much of love that I didn't know I had so much of love. I didn't know so many people cared about me. So that was one thing that I realized, and I thought that was a great thing to realize. Even if I died, at least I would have died knowing that I was loved so much. So it was a great way to go there. Thankfully I haven't, but yes. Having said that, when you talk about something, also you're discussing various options, various things. You come to know different things that can be done, can't be done. Have you tried it? So as like anything else, it's a community and you need to discuss things. And what I realized when I came back was that we need to make it an open thing. It's not something that you should be hiding and that you should be, you know, keeping it within the family, because the mental state is going to go down the hill, because you're living in that pain and the trouble, and your caregivers are also hiding it. Nobody has a place where they can vent and share, and you know, that takes a toll on your mental health, and then that's taking the toll on how you recover from it. So it's a vicious circle. So the thing that I can do in my capacity when I was called here also was that yes, if my voice can be heard and if me talking about it makes people share their stories and talk about it, I'm happy to do that.
One final question. You know, the most important thing you mentioned, which drove you to go to a particular institution for treatment, was that the outcomes were good. The question that I wanted to ask you, and if through you perhaps this message would go, that you know, when we as Indians look at buying jewelry, not we as Indians, you as Indians, I can't afford it. When the rich people go and buy jewelry,
Not a jewelry person.
They look for hallmark. You know, when you go and buy a woolen product, you look for Woolmark. Even an agricultural guy, when he goes and buys fertilizer, he looks for Agrimark. Why don't Indians, or did you, in particular, look for any mark which certifies that this hospital is good quality?
Well, I didn't know there was an organization called CAR. To be honest, this is what I came to know now, and I'm so happy that there is something which is like a benchmark, which is basically, like you said, an ISI kind of a certification is what you look for, right? This is the place you should be going for.
GAHO represents the accreditation body, and then it's all over the world. So the hospital you went to in the United States also has accredited.
So right, so what is the accreditation?
Accreditation means, So
like
you,
there are all these ads that go out which say that, you know,
Jago, Grahak Jago.
No, and ISI mark dekho, hallmark dekho.
Correct.
So maybe you guys should also be advertising.
So would you be able to
Of
do this as our ambassador? I think this is the best way to end it. So ladies and gentlemen,
one more. I would like to say a couple of things more, which is one more thing. When you said when you go, if there is a difference between what is happening in the US and what is happening here and all that, I do have 2-3 things that we need to look into much more, and I don't know, and I'm happy and open to sit and contribute in any way that I can. But what I discovered was that genetic testing is important. So when there are hospitals that have a cancer department, you know, you have constantly teekakaran karo, ye karo. There are so many posters that you put out. Why don't you put more posters on get your testing done, checkups done? Why don't we talk more about cancer? Even the hospitals don't talk about cancer. Even the doctors are so scared to say the big C. Though cancer is like a big umbrella, And then when I get it, I realize that every cancer is like a different disease altogether. It's like just one big umbrella which covers, God knows, probably 40 different kinds of diseases or more. So why aren't the hospitals also putting up more of these things and talking about it a lot more? And you do blood banks and this bank. So let's do more talks about it so that you reach grassroots levels. We'll talk about media, but half the time I don't see the news because I find it only bad news come out and I'm not looking at it at all. But when you do grassroots levels and when you do things in hospitals, people who are sitting there waiting for the doctor are reading it. At least I do read what is happening and try to follow it. So maybe we should also do that.
Yeah, but I'd just like to add, on behalf of doctors, that doctors make errors. To make errors...
We all do. Human beings make that. I don't think we should hold that.
Yeah, to make errors is human, but to blame it on others requires management skill. And we have a lot of managers here.
Okay, so all the managers have to do this.
So they have to do this.
Guys, it's all, you just put it all in your laps.
Thank you very much.
So you have to do this.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please give her a standing ovation.
No, you don't have to do that. But thank you so much. I was really petrified about being here in front of all the doctors and talking on this medical terms. But I mean what I said over here, that if there is any way that I can, in my way, help out, and which is, if me talking about something helps out, I would love to get the data on it and be the person who talks about it. But until I know it myself, so there needs to be a place from where I can get it. So if I can be provided with that, I would love to focus on it and, you know, kind of amplify it, as you say. But I don't know it. I'm not a medical person, so I'm a lay person. I need to be told that, and I'm happy to learn. Thank you so much.
All I'd say is thank you very much.
Thank you.
And may God bless you with a healthy and a long life ahead.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me.
I would like to call upon stage Mr. Joy Chakravarti, CEO Hinduja Hospital, Dr. Rajendra Patankar, CEO Dr. Patkar, Director Medical Services, Nanavati Hospital, and Dr. Vishesh Agarwal, Consultant Internal Medicine, to felicitate Ms. Sonali Bendre Bahel. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time out of your busy schedule. We understand that she has to leave because of prior commitment, so a big round of applause for her.